welcome back to the Colorblind Architect Podcast. I'm your host, David, and it is Friday, November the 20th, in our ongoing battle for the election. Yesterday, there was a big press conference with Rudy Giuliani and the legal team for Donald Trump. Supposedly letting out the Kraken, which is such a weird phrase, to be quite honest. Letting out the Kraken. I mean, yeah, okay. Or release the Kraken, I guess is what they're saying. So what was the Kraken? Well, so far it sounded like a lot of the same stuff that I've been hearing already, other than the fact that it sounds like they do have some significant affidavits, some significant witness testimony that they'll be able to bring to the courts, including some insiders at Dominion Voting Systems who have decided to risk their career in order to expose the corruption that may be going on there. If that's the case, that could blow a lid wide open on this whole thing. That could be absolutely huge. But it might not. It might be a whole lot of nothing again. It might be that Joe Biden is our next president. It might be that there is nothing stopping the Great Reset. So, what do you do about that? Well, as I've said before, and I said before the election, regardless of what happens, everything's going to be okay. The strange thing is I have had this feeling of peace and comfort. And for those of you who are familiar with my religion, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we get baptized when we're 8 years old. And after the baptism, we have a group of priests that lay their hands upon the head, and they confirm you a member, and then they give you they say receive the Holy Ghost, which basically is a gift from God of the constant companionship of the Holy Spirit. Now, whether you believe it or not, that's up to you. I'm not trying to proselyte here. I'm just explaining sort of my background and why, when I say I've got a peaceful, comforting feeling, there is partially that feeling that the Holy Spirit is telling me that don't worry about it. This isn't your battle, Dave. You don't have to fight this. You're going to be okay, regardless of what happens. So, granted, it still bothers me. It's still going to bother me a lot to see the commotion, the uproar, the troubles that go, no matter what the issue is. I mean, let's be real. There's a lot of crap that happens in the world, a lot of really bad stuff that happens, and it's really easy to get weighed down by all those thoughts. It's really easy to bear the weight of the world on your shoulders mentally. And I'm not saying that I'm actually carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. That would be blasphemous. But what I mean by that is, I think sometimes mentally, as people, we allow ourselves to get caught up in a feeling like just being overwhelmed, like everything depends on us, and that we are, it's just too much to bear, right? I think that's something that's safe to say that pretty much everybody experiences in adulthood, that feeling of being overwhelmed, like the whole weight of the world is on your shoulders, regardless of whether it really is or not. But the beauty of the message of Jesus Christ is that you don't need to be the one that bears all of that. You know, it's one of these things where I think it's really quite miraculous when you think about it. How simple a thing it is to simply believe that God has your back, that God's there for you. And one of the things that you go through as you go through trials, and you know, I've gone through my fair share of trials, and I'm sure you have too, is that when you're going through trials, you feel like God has abandoned you. And granted, this is spoken as somebody who is, you know, lifelong Christian. I don't know what it feels like to not be a Christian, because even at my deepest, darkest doubts of God, which there have been many times where I have seriously doubted the existence of God, even at those times, that comfort came back. And at some point in that trial, I would feel a deep and abiding love and feeling of comfort, knowing that everything's going to be okay. And so, regardless of how you feel about the election, and maybe you're happy about Joe Biden getting elected, I've expressed my concerns about it. And, you know, honestly, like I said, I hope to God he's going to govern in a God-fearing manner, that he's going to listen to the Spirit and not sell us down the river to the Chinese Communist Party or to any other political entity that he has indebted himself to through his son Hunter. I sure hope that he's not overly indebted to organizations that I believe are evil, like Planned Parenthood or Antifa. These groups that are destroying families and trying to tear down the moral fabric of our country. So, is he going to? Is Joe going to be a president who honors and obeys God, or is he going to be a president that honors and obeys these organizations that are bent on political power because he has too much that he owes to them? There's always a possibility that he could have a come to Jesus moment, so to speak, where he realizes, oh crap, this is a much more serious situation, and I've been such a freaking fool all my life playing these stupid political games, and I need to do what's right for the country. I hope to God that's what he does if he's indeed inaugurated in January. Notice I keep qualifying that, because this is 2020 after all. Who knows? For all we know, Trump might actually pull this off with his legal battles. He might actually freaking win. I don't know. But my point is it's not my battle. And it's probably not your battle. See, here's the thing. We can worry and fret over these things. We can worry and fret about politics. And yes, is it important to follow politics? Is it important to follow what's happening in the news and all that? Yes. Yes, it is. But it is also very important that we keep perspective. That we don't get overwhelmed with this feeling of guilt or this feeling of being overwhelmed, this feeling of needing to have, needing to be the person who solves it all. Like I said, this is not my battle. My battle is my daily life, trying to bring home the bread, bring home the bacon, so to speak, be a good provider for my family, but also be a good lover to my wife, a good friend to my wife, to be there for her, to support her, to lift her up when she has times of need, just as it is for her. She also has that duty that she willfully takes on because we both love each other, right? We see it as an equal partnership. We see it as something where she helps me, I help her. It's not anyone, neither of us is the master. Even if under Christianity, the man of the house is technically the head of the household, but that's only in presiding. So let's talk about that principle of presiding then. What does it mean to preside? Because I think this is also important when it comes to talking about the President of the United States. The President of the United States merely presides. Presides. He does not command. He does not rule. He does not govern. He presides. Now, he may be the commander-in-chief of the military, and that is where a lot of his power is in foreign policy. Hence the reason why I'm very concerned about President Biden, or even worse, President Kamala Harris. And I don't care what the pronunciation of her name is. I pronounce it Kamala. If it's Kamala or whatever it is, I don't freaking care, because you know what? You go to other countries, they mispronounce English words all the time. They mispronounce American words all the time. So you know what? I don't freaking care. I'm going to pronounce it the way that sounds right to me. And if it offends somebody, so be it. But let's get back to presiding. Presiding does not mean to rule. It means to simply be the person who moderates the overall discussion amongst the group at which they preside over. To basically lead them through example, lead them through, that choice of moderation. But other than that, they still have to govern at the agreement of the people. So even as a father, this is something that a lot of men really get wrong. They really misunderstand the principle of being a good father. Is that while I might be king of the castle, I might be the presiding authority in the house. If I try to govern, if I try to rule my kids or try to rule my wife with any level of abuse or overbearingness or even compulsion, any form of compulsion, any level of compulsion, then I have forfeited my right to rule as soon as I try to force others to behave. Now, there is slight exceptions to that rule. For example, if a toddler is starting to run across the street, yes, you bet your bottom dollar that I grab the arm, yank them back, and make sure that they do not go out into the street in front of a passing car. That is not compulsion. That's called saving somebody's life. But you have to be really careful with how much you do that. Because you also can't be constantly doing that, because eventually they rebel. Just like a mouse, if you hold a mouse in your hand, it might crawl around in your hand and be fine. But as soon as you try to squeeze down and hold on to the mouse, it squirms its way out and escapes. The same is true of people. If you try to force them, if you try to compel them to do what you want them to do, they will eventually rebel. And it is at that point that you have lost your right to rule. As it talks about in the Declaration of Independence, which is most definitely a divinely inspired document, it talks about when this long string of abuses by by a tyrant ruler, when this long string of abuses happens, it is not only our right, but it is our duty as the people to rise up and overthrow that ruler. So how does that play into a system like ours, like a system like America, where we have a constitutional republic? And no, it is not a democracy. It is a constitutional republic. In a constitutional republic, we elect these leaders to basically do the dirty work for us, basically to go there and govern, which is a thankless task if you're doing it honestly. Because as every parent knows, it is a pain in the butt to be a parent, right? It sucks. It really sucks being a parent. It also is the most wonderful thing on earth, because you get these wonderful children that love you, and you get to have this wonderful relationship with them that's really unique as a parent. But at the same time, it really sucks, because they will rebel, they will fight against you, and it is thankless because you are serving them way more than you're getting them to obey your orders. No matter how much you try to make them do their chores, you're probably going to end up redoing those chores in an effort to teach them the right way of doing those chores, right? So same thing in government. The way it's supposed to work in a constitutional republic is that the concept of a public servant, the way it's supposed to work is you're supposed to go serve your term after being elected, and then when you finish serving your term, you go back to your regular life. You don't go into lobbying. You don't suddenly become a millionaire because you went to Washington as a congressperson. That's not the way it's supposed to work. You're supposed to be a public servant. And so that's something that I think we really need to get back to, and how we get back there, I don't know. I mean, I think about my own joke of a governor here in Utah, Governor Herbert. I mean, and the weird thing is, he was kind of a milquetoast, okay governor for most of his 3 terms. I mean, honestly, I didn't really have much to complain about, because for the most part, he was fine until the pandemic hit. When the pandemic hit, he started taking way too much power, and especially recently with this second round of lockdowns, he's been absolutely terrible with all these draconian policies that are extra, they're unconstitutional. Well, surprise, surprise, people have been protesting him because that's outside of his authority. He's trying to compel people to wear masks. Well, look, if people don't want to wear masks, That's their thing. You know, I get it. People are scared. And I get it that this is a real virus. But why force people? That's not going to get anywhere. As my mom used to always say, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. So if you're going to govern, you need to do it at the consent of the governed. How do we overthrow a leader who's being corrupt in a constitutional republic? We vote. That's why we have elections. That's our peaceful revolution that we have every 2 years. Just think about that. Every 2 years we have a revolution in our Congress. It's beautiful, isn't it? But it's a peaceful revolution. It's one at which we get to choose. Now here's the question, do we really actually choose? I think too many people vote down ballot. Whether they vote for the R's or the D's. You know? Do they really think about who they're voting for? And especially in Democrat-run cities that have been Democrat-run for like 70, 80 years. What the hell are you guys doing? Why are you giving so much power to these corrupt leaders that have just mismanaged your city for so many decades? You would think that you'd want to throw them out every once in a while, even if you don't like the Republicans, or if you're in a Republican-controlled state, even if you don't like the Republicans, throw them out every 2 years. You know, just throw them out. Replace them with people who are new, fresh. Get some fresh ideas in there. Make sure that nobody's in there long enough. So, you might ask then, am I in favor of term limits? I'd say absolutely. In fact, I am even a fan of the concept of random Congress duty. Like, as in we do away with elections for Congress and we just have a pool of candidates that are the same as the jury pool. So basically, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you can just randomly be assigned to Congress. And that could be your 3-month term. And I say 3-month term for a reason, because we don't want to allow anybody to gain enough power or enough time in Washington to have lobbyists and influence peddlers actually be able to control you. No, instead, your power needs to be severely limited, and the whole idea is that you would have maybe some elected panels that are in charge of writing up the laws, but the jury Congress could be the one that actually has the duty to read the bills and vote on them. And that's their only job, is to read the bills and to vote on them. And you could even do this through like some sort of authenticated blockchain server, and that way they even stay at their own home. They don't even have to go to Washington. They just receive, okay, here's the... In fact, we don't even have to get rid of Congress. We could just say, okay, Congress, you're still elected. Your job is still to author the bills and to do all your normal duties. But the final authorization of a bill before it goes to the president is to, let's say, 50,000 people across the country, randomly assigned via jury duty, and we'll call it the congressional jury, and they would just randomly be assigned, and their requirement would be to thoroughly read through the bill, every single bill that comes up. They have to thoroughly read it, and then vote on it, yay or nay. And the whole point being that way you distribute the power from actually writing these laws, so that, I mean, from actually, voting on these laws, so as to keep the power away from the lobbyists, the K Street people. Maybe it would work, I don't know, but it would require a constitutional amendment. It's an idea, but these are some ideas that, I think could help. As for the president, I think we need to really, again, make sure our voting systems are secure. Because even if Joe Biden is our next president, we need to clean this up. We need to make sure, for the sake of everybody, for the sake of the world, because after all, the U.S. government is the hegemonic power on the globe. We, as a globe, we can't afford to have a bad president. We need to stop being subject to voter fraud or even voter irregularities. And so, anyways, I've gone on for way longer than I expected. I had actually planned on only doing like a short video today, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully this has been a helpful discussion. I know it has for me, because it's some of the ideas that have been percolating in my mind. This has allowed me to crystallize them in verbal form, which again is why I do this video. I don't do this video for likes. I don't do this video. I don't do this YouTube channel for likes or views or clicks or anything like that. I mean, after all, I've got 7 subscribers and usually about 2 views each video. So this is obviously not for the views. No, I'm doing this because it helps me put my ideas together and make sure that I'm thinking clearly, and also to be able to vent when I want to vent. If it goes out and it helps anybody, great. If it doesn't help anybody, whatever. Anyways, with that, I do bid you farewell until our next video. Of course, as always, I'm the Colorblind Architect. Peace out.